lot of people ask why. Why treat the customer this way? Why? Because f them, that's why.
His content is good. Fertanga's content is good. My content is kind of meh.
Sometimes the best W's are the ones handed to you on a silver platter without you having to do a goddamn thing. Would you look at that? Alex finally realizes his place. All I had to do was tell my addicts, go try some of Alex's salt. It's just as good as Daddy Fritz, I promise. But unfortunately, all of that was a lie. They quickly realized Alex's salt wasn't just mid, it was Reggie.
Did we ask for a key or a f***ing ounce?
Man, that's motherfucking drywall.
So they tore apart his Florida house, threw all of his gym equipment in the swamp, and he learned a very valuable lesson that day. If your salt isn't up to par with what addicts want, you're going to pay the price. I mean, yeah, sure, my viewers may eat out of trash cans, mug little children for their lunch money, and on the side of the road, but they got standards when it comes to salt, Alex. You can't treat them like they're your viewers. Your thighs are not going to work on a salt addict who's desperately trying to get his next fix. The only thing they're going to see is a healthy heart and liver that they can put on the black market. Let this be your first and last warning, Alex. Don't play around with these fiends, because nobody knows the salt game better than I do.
You may know this whole
Working out and exercise
business, but I know
Salt.
heads.
UK regulators are looking into Microsoft's acquisition of Activision, and Sony says that it wants to protect gamers by keeping games like Call of Duty on PlayStation. Protecting the gamers from saving money. Good old Jim Ryan. What a guy. Always looking out for the well-being of the gamers. I mean, after all, that's why he's making sure the PSVR 2 has no backwards compatibility with the PSVR 1. Jim's gonna have a field day, just like with the next-gen ports of their PS5 games. They're gonna charge you full price to play those games again on your brand new PSVR 2. And of course, well, this is Jim Ryan's PlayStation, so I fully expect them to randomly increase the price of that in 2 years from now. When it comes to protecting the consumer from better options, no one's better at it than Sony. The UK's Competition and Markets Authority has recommended beginning a second phase investigation into Microsoft's acquisition of Activision Blizzard, as it believes it could stifle competition in the video game industry in the region. Sony has responded that it welcomes the announcement of further investigation.
Miss Finster!
Ah, Randall, just the boy I was looking for. I trust you have something a little more satisfying for me today. Just as I suspected. Randall, it pains me to say it, but you've hit the wall. You've lost the touch. You're off your game.
But I still get my cookie, right?
I'm afraid not, Randall. Snacks are for snitches.
Whoa, wow, who would have seen that coming? Typical Sony cock-blocking behavior. By giving Microsoft control of Activision games like Call of Duty, this deal would have major negative implications for gamers and the future of the gaming industry. Sony said in a statement to Games Industry Biz, "We want to guarantee PlayStation gamers continue to have the highest quality gaming experience, and we appreciate the CMA's focus on protecting gamers."
Did you ever know that you're my hero? 'Cause you are the wind beneath my wings. Thank you.
What you mean to say is you appreciate the CMA's focus on protecting you. Sony is scared shitless right now. They are now hiding behind the CMA, and they absolutely reek of desperation. They want to preach about protecting the gamers, yet they get Modern Warfare 2 exclusive content. Their whole concern is about Microsoft taking content away from PlayStation gamers, yet are actively taking COD content away from Xbox gamers. This is all about protecting their self-interest. It's exclusive content like this that they are concerned about losing. If they truly cared about the gamers, they would be paying to make content for all platforms. But here they're paying to lock content away from other platforms. And for Call of Duty, nonetheless, The very same game that they're claiming Microsoft is being unfair about. You can't make this up. This is the timeline we live in right now. Sony is in no position to say anything, especially when they're actively hurting other gamers. Sony fearmongers that giving Microsoft complete control of Call of Duty would impact their gamers, but they don't consider the impact they've made on Xbox gamers throughout the years with all these exclusivity deals. Jim Ryan's frivolous lifestyle can't run off of solely PlayStation exclusive content. You really think God of War Ragnarok is gonna be enough to cover his coke expenses? All the higher ups at PlayStation and Sony have very expensive and quite possibly illegal hobbies and spending habits, and it's not fueled off of games like God of War or Horizon Forbidden West. No, it's revenue generated in Call of Duty. I'm pretty sure that at least more than half of the higher ups at PlayStation and Sony don't actually give two shits about video games, let alone gamers. They care about numbers. And you know what? There's nothing wrong with that. It's just business. It's when you pose as a man of the people that I can't take you seriously. It's like watching Mark Zuckerberg try to display emotions and tell his mom he loves her.
I'm making meats now. Smoking these meats here. Our little meat smoking. It's smoking. So
none of us here legitimately believe Sony has the ability to love or care about anything. Your own consumers didn't buy this. Well, I mean, except for the ones that eat paint chips and drink Jamba Juice. They know who they are. I don't really need to explain to these guys how little Sony cares about them. They're the only assholes right now raising the price of their console in the middle of a global recession. That is the Sony who says they want to protect gamers. And likewise, their legion of fanboys protect them from criticism. Ponies have gone from licking the boot straight up into Sony's bunghole. Viewer discretion is advised, and keep in mind you can't sue me for what I'm about to show you.
Some viewers may find the following video disturbing. Viewer discretion is advised.
Sony, giving Microsoft control of Activision games like Call of Duty would have major negative implications for gamers and the future of the gaming industry. Also, Sony. I don't think Sony really cares about Call of Duty exclusive content. It's just a marketing deal. Microsoft has moved on to making Game Pass deals that are focused on the value of the sub. Sony's biggest fear is caught on Xbox Game Pass Day 1 and having to compete on value for consumers. I don't understand. Where's the lie? How did this tweet attract so much hate? This man was martyred by Pony Twitter for speaking the goddamn truth and pointing out Sony's own hypocrisy and exposing what they truly care about, which is the marketing rights. Everything else is nothing more than PR talk, which is basically gospel for the Sony ponies. Now, it just so happens to be that one of these Sony ponies is also a gaming journalist.
Yes, because getting early access to a paid demo and costumes is exactly the same as being worried a major franchise will get lost out of your platform, like what happened with Starfield and Elder Scrolls after a large acquisition.
A goddamn journalist is sitting here, acting like Final Fantasy, Spider-Man, and Street Fighter aren't being locked behind the PlayStation. Major franchises. Are we supposed to pity, hate, or favor a single one of these corporations? Microsoft locking Elder Scrolls and Starfield is a big no-no, especially if they're gonna do it with Call of Duty. But Spider-Man being locked away to PlayStation, Final Fantasy being locked away, Street Fighter being locked away. That makes perfect sense. PlayStation needs to do that. Microsoft's not allowed to play the same game because they have a bigger wallet, and that's not fair. Just think about all the content that's been missing on the Xbox due to PlayStation paying for exclusivity deals. It's what gave their console the biggest advantage. And I didn't see no bitching about monopolies or how this would hurt the industry or PlayStation gamers. I didn't see Phil Spencer on his knees crying and begging for mercy. There was no 10-hour-long Twitter spaces. There were no public meltdowns. It was all fair game then, it should be now. Unfortunately, when it happens to the other side, you get a completely different result. An entitlement like no other. Xbox gamers are never allowed to worry about any content being locked away from their console, but the ponies are perfectly entitled to being worried about losing a single IP. They must have everything and everyone must have nothing.
Microsoft has every right to make games exclusive if they are paying that much much money for acquisitions, but at least they should be genuine about their intentions.
Exactly, where have they been disingenuous about their intentions? They clearly agreed to honor any agreements and contracts between PlayStation and Call of Duty up to a few years, and that their biggest plans are to bring Call of Duty to Game Pass. The only ones being disingenuous with their intentions are PlayStation. Instead of just coming out and saying that they're scared shitless about losing Call of Duty, they're trying to rile up their blind loyalists into believing that Microsoft owning Call of Duty is going to hurt the entire industry, and good old PlayStation just wants to protect gamers from that. Instead of taking the massive hit like Microsoft has for years, Sony has decided to sensationalize this instead of putting themselves in a situation where they would have to start innovating once again. And evidently it would seem their propaganda works when even a blue checkmark journalist is falling for it. He wants Microsoft to be genuine with their intentions, as if that's a genius business move. No, that's stupid. Microsoft giving away their intentions is giving away their strategies. Why would they put themselves at a disadvantage like that? You really think they're dropping $70 billion just to tell Sony what they're going to do next? How did this man ever get a job writing for anybody? This is the type of insight you'd expect from JTech TV or King Thrash Gaming. We want to guarantee PlayStation gamers continue to have the highest quality gaming experience, and we appreciate the CMA's focus on protecting gamers. Xbox has repeatedly committed to COD staying multi-platform. Meanwhile, here's Sony's version of protecting gamers.
You can't keep getting away with it!
Yet another heathen going against the sacred word of Sony. How dare they point out the flaws and hypocrisies in the scripture?
That's quite big. Impressive.
False equivalence! Exclusive DLC, literally industry standard practice Xbox popularized. Xbox had COD DLC exclusivity 5 years ago during 360. Plus, Phil only committed to COD staying multi-plat for 3 years post-contract. Entire point Jim was calling out. No permanent multi-plat guarantee.
And why should a permanent multi-plat be guaranteed exactly? Microsoft is not obligated to guarantee anything to Sony. Sony didn't buy Bungie or Insomniac to make games for Xbox. When Sony purchases these studios, nobody is questioning whether they will make the content exclusive or not. Nobody's up in arms about it. We understand that competition is competition. Either play the game or get played. Jim Ryan can't be setting these rules and then bitching about them.
Did you get hacked?
Because I'm calling out Jim Ryan for talking nonsense? Pretty sure I don't need to be hacked for that.
This was the 4th post I seen you making console war-like tweets, which is why I asked. Carry on.
Jim Ryan said it, not me. Maybe talk to him about console war-like statements.
Actually, I'm speaking on you trying to be disingenuous with your arguments. An exclusive skin, weapon blueprint, early access to a beta is not the equivalent of a $70 billion acquisition of an entire company. Also, they're still under contract, so this stuff is expected.
They just don't get it, do they? The entire point Destin is trying to make is that Sony claims Microsoft is trying to lock content away and lower the quality for gamers, while they actively locked content away on COD from Xbox gamers and other platforms. It shows you what Sony is truly scared of losing. It's right there in front of them. And yet the ponies can't see it. Yet they literally buy into what PlayStation says about caring about the quality of the game. Don't believe me? Just look. Why do you care about who owns Call of Duty when it will still come to PlayStation?
Because I actually care about the quality of their games and franchise. Why don't you care about industry consolidation?
Did I not tell you? I told you, didn't I? Word for word. Whatever PlayStation said, whatever PR bullshit they spewed, that is their next gospel. Just believe what PlayStation said. Stop bullshitting us. You don't care about the quality of Call of Duty whatsoever, because it's been going downhill for quite some time. Anybody who's actually a Call of Duty fan would look at this as a good thing. Clean up Activision, reform it, and get it back to work on Call of Duty with fresh ideas. The only thing you really care about is how this affects PlayStation, let's be real. Most people are thankful it was Microsoft who acquired them and not Embracer Group, or Apple, or Amazon. Either way, the current Activision was crumbling. They are going to be in a far better place than they were under Bobby for the past decade. If Sony truly cared, they would have been doing something to improve the quality of Call of Duty, but they weren't, were they? They were just paying for priority skins and DLC packs so that they could monetize Call of Duty as much as possible, no matter how much it sucked that year. Now, unfortunately, we're not quite done yet. It's one thing to have to read these tweets. It's another to have to sit through a video, especially when it involves MPG and his salty ass. But you know what? Fuck it. I refuse to suffer alone. If you click off at this point, you're a goddamn coward.
You're wrong. I'm not a coward. I'm not a coward.
Super Gaming, you're saying we are in the age where people are mad when a game doesn't come to Game Pass, and their first question about a new game is, will it be on Game Pass? Dude, I know, man, and I fucking hate that shit. You know, like, it looks so sad and pathetic. Like, not because gamers want a great deal, but because you are hurting the gaming industry. You are.
Come again? Encouraging a business practice where people pay little to nothing for a game versus Sony's model where they increase the price on you by $10? That's what's hurting the industry and gamers all around. Ponies do nothing but bitch and complain about how Game Pass is hurting the industry, but yet not a single one of them can point you to an example of that happening. Meanwhile, I can point you to every single example of Sony's price hikes hurting gamers. With Game Pass, all devs are doing is getting a nice fat bag of cash from Microsoft and more attention for their game. It is in my interest to see all my favorite developers eventually have their games on Game Pass, if it helps them that much. Until then, unless you have examples of Game Pass hurting the industry, quit talking out of your ass.
You know, like, if there's I want to stress this one last time. This probably won't be the last time, but I want to stress it again. Why do you think no other video game publisher has created a Game Pass competitor yet? Seriously. So Microsoft's been at it for years. They're not stopping. And we're being told that it's great for the industry. If it's so great for the industry, why has no one else created a Game Pass competitor?
Then exactly what is PS Plus? Isn't that the service ponies were saying was the Game Pass killer on Twitter? Now they're saying a Game Pass competitor doesn't exist? Take off that goddamn hat, MBG. I need to see the bump on your head.
Look, you seem like a really nice kid, but my head is fine.
Oh my god! Oh my god, that's horrific!
Oh, it's a school!
Okay, Frank.
They can't take the loss. Oh. Well, there you go. So I don't want to hear these people who are advocating for Game Pass and pushing for that shit so hard and saying, well, is it coming to Game Pass day one?
Well, the real question here is, if it's so bad for the industry, why have so many people created subscription services? Game Pass is not the only subscription service that exists. It may be the only service with first-party content day one, but that's about it. EA has their own, Sony has their own. If it was so harmful to the industry, I don't think a single developer would put their games on the service. As a matter of fact, I don't think a single publisher would come up with the idea of their own subscription service.
And you see these people, it's like, guys, I hate to break it to you, the only reason developers get a bag for their games on Game Pass, and I've seen this, I've seen so many people talk about, well, this dev said something positive. I'm sure they did. Specific developers that Microsoft is signing checks to put games onto Game Pass, they're not the ones losing. They're gonna take the bag. Microsoft's losing, because they're able to lose. They're able to afford to lose that money. Someone is taking a loss. The only thing Microsoft is doing is pulling the veil over.
The only loss happening is that of my own brain cells. He says that no other company could take the loss, and yet PlayStation still makes their own subscription service and still puts some of their most popular games on it. Who gives two shits who wins or loses exactly? It's about what's best for me. It's about saving my money. It ain't about Microsoft. Likewise, why would it be about Sony? If the developers get a big bag of cash and their game gets played by more people, you're gonna have a hard time convincing me that's gonna hurt the industry or any sort of consumer. People are getting paid to have their games played, and people are saving money as a result of that. Hell, how do you think I'm playing this lovely game you're seeing on screen right now, Metal Hellsinger, on Game Pass? The devs are now getting more attention for their game. A YouTuber with 50k subs is using gameplay footage thanks to Game Pass. Some of the best games of the year are published on Game Pass day one. How in the world are you going to tell me that's bad for the industry and bad for gamers? The only thing it's bad for is your own ego. So easily hurt and triggered by Game Pass. Nothing upsets ponies more than seeing people happy about saving money for video games, because it means Microsoft has accomplished their goal, and that's enticing people with the value of the service. Honestly, it's getting worse by the week. Jim Ryan is salty, the ponies are salty, journalists are salty, social media's a mess, and the acquisition has still not been completed. Game Pass growth is just getting started. How bad is it going to get? The potency of that salt legit may kill you guys. No, I'm for real this time around. Well, with the way things are going, I don't think either of us are going to be alive by then, so that's a relief. But not as big of a relief as me ending the video. Thank God it's over. Consider becoming a member of this channel, and you should like, comment, share, subscribe if you so choose to. With that being said, Daddy Frit will see you in the next one.
Fritango sucks ass.